Most Ladas had just 69 horsepower. But in the Soviet Union, there was a factory where they turned them into 160 horsepower monsters, real race cars. And that factory was called VFTS. Every major project has the name of its creator behind it. At the Vilnius vehicle factory in Soviet Lithuania, the production of the fastest Ladas was led by the famous racing driver Stasys Brundza. He took his first steps in motorsport in the mid-1960s, when Soviet drivers were just beginning to appear at international competitions. Together with Kostis Girdauskas, Brundza started his career behind the wheel of a Zaz 965. The car was painfully underpowered, but in the winter of 1967, during races at the Riga Hippodrome, Brundza managed to show his skill. He outpaced heavier Gaz 21s in the corners, though he could not yet match the experienced factory drivers of Moskvich. In the 1970s, he joined the racing team of the new Izhevsk automobile plant and drove specially prepared bright orange Ease rally cars. In 1971, alongside Anatoly Brum, he won the Soviet Rally Championship. On the international stage, Brundza fought against Porsche, Renault Gordini, and Ford Capri. In 1974, together with Karamyshev, he achieved overall victory in the famous Tour of Europe, covering 15,000 kilometers across 13 countries. For 10 years in a row, from 1974 to 1983, Stasys Brundza consistently stood on the podium at the Soviet Rally Championships. By the mid-1970s, the Soviet rally team came up with a bold idea: to prepare a Lada at the same level as Europe's best cars, with the help of a foreign specialist. Through Castrol's Polish branch, a contract was signed with the Italian workshop Abarth. Since the 1950s, Abarth had been turning ordinary Fiats into rally champions. And who better to improve the Lada, which itself was based on the Fiat 124? The car and two engines were shipped to Turin. The work dragged on, but the result was worth it. During tests at the Dimitrov Proving Ground and later in Togliatti, the car produced 140 horsepower and could hold 175 kilometers per hour on the road. Brundza took this car as his benchmark. With the support of the Lithuanian Sports Technical Club, he prepared his first Lada for the legendary 1976 Acropolis Rally. The result, second place in the under 2-liter class and sixth overall. The next car was built in a brand new workshop, the foundation of what would soon become an entire factory. Brundza dreamed not of one-off specials, but of series-built rally Ladas, just like Abarth, Gordini, or Cosworth. The idea received official support from the Ministry of Transport of the Lithuanian Soviet Socialist Republic. A small workshop was set up at a repair plant in Vilnius, which soon became Brundza's base. There, together with a team of engineers and mechanics, he built his first rally car, the Lada 1600 Rally, which hit the tracks by the end of the 1970s. The very first rally-spec Lada was based on the Lada 21011. Why not the more modern Lada 2103, you may ask? The reason was simple. The body of the 3 weighed 280 kilograms, while the 2111 was only 211. That weight difference made the choice obvious. The 2103 did see some rally action, including the famous Acropolis Rally, but in the end it was the 2111 that became the real foundation. To an untrained eye, the 2101 and 21011 looked almost the same, but technically, they were different cars. Small details gave it away. Ventilation grills on the pillars, different taillights, bumpers without overriders, a revised grille, and even a perforated panel under the nose, which slightly improved cooling. By the late 1970s, the Lada 2106 engine, with its 1.6-liter displacement, was already in production. That unit became the heart of the Lada Sport. It was inside the 21,011 body that engineers tested all the solutions that would turn a family sedan into a proper rally weapon. A titanium roll cage was developed, light yet strong, tying the structure together and greatly increasing rigidity to fit wide 235/13 wheels. The stock arches were cut away and replaced with fiberglass over-fenders. Not a single part of the engine remained untouched. Weight was reduced, friction minimized, and the results were unprecedented. While before, Lada engines could be tuned up to 120 to 125 horsepower. The first Vilnius-built motors produced a solid 151 to 153 horsepower at 6,700 RPM. The engineers mastered crankshaft and conrod polishing, piston selection, lightweight flywheels, reworked cylinder heads, and even custom valves. They also created their own gearbox, ventilated disc brakes, and unique electrical systems. For the suspension, they experimented with uprights from the Moskvich, far tougher than the standard Lada parts. And thanks to auto export, they could buy Western-made clutches and shock absorbers, since Soviet parts simply weren't up to the job. The results were striking. The Rally Lada was lighter than stock, 920 kilograms instead of 955. At the same time, power more than doubled. Top speed rose to nearly 190 kilometers per hour compared to 145 for the road car, and acceleration from 0 to 100 dropped from 20 seconds to just 8.6. But for Stasys Brundza and his team, this machine soon became just a stepping stone, a well-fought chapter, but already a thing of the past. In 1980, the AvtoVAZ introduced its new Lada 2105. At the Geneva Motor Show that year, it became clear that many European buyers preferred this updated Soviet version of the old Fiat 124 over the newer Fiat 131, and even over the modern front-wheel drive Fiat Ritmo. In Finland, the 2105 shocked the market. In 1981, it became the best-selling new car in the country. In early 1981, Moscow hosted an exhibition of new competition cars. Among them was a striking white Lada, with blue and red stripes, flared wheel arches, and alloy wheels. For the first time, the car carried the abbreviation VFTS, Vilnius Factory of Transport Vehicles. It was no longer just a repair shop, but a full-fledged rally car constructor. At the same show, the Vilnius team also unveiled a rally service van based on the RAF 2203. Brundza knew very well, without a support vehicle and proper service, there could be no wins in rallying. The engines were practically rebuilt from scratch. The crankshaft was polished and balanced 3 times, alone with the flywheel and again with the clutch. The flywheel was redesigned to be light and strong. Connecting rods were polished, pistons lightened, pins replaced with thinner versions. Every clearance was measured with micrometer precision, something unthinkable for mass-produced Ladas. The cylinder head was milled to raise compression to 10.5 to 11.5, while a pair of horizontal Weber carburetors handled the fuel mixture. A new camshaft was made. The oil pan capacity increased from 4.2 to 7.5 liters, and even the crank pulley was downsized to reduce the load on the alternator and water pump. The exhaust system was custom-built from scratch. The clutch came from racing Fiats, while the gearbox deserves special mention. Engineer Romas Yuknelevicius designed a unique 5-speed unit inside the casing of a regular 4-speed. Straight-cut gears, dog clutches, no synchronizers. Terrifying for an amateur, but perfect for a racer. VFTS also returned to rear disc brakes, making all 4 ventilated. The hubs were built from titanium to reduce unsprung weight. Steering geometry was fine-tuned with new tie rods, and German Bilstein shock absorbers were fitted. Even the wiring and brake lines were routed inside a dedicated tunnel. Weight reduction was the final touch. The Rally Lada was 80 kilograms lighter than stock. On paper, top speed was listed at 192 kilometers per hour, but in reality, the VFTS cars would push well past 200. Brundza and his VFTS were not alone in the Soviet Union. Rally-spec Ladas were also built by the Vihur workshop in Tallinn, Estonia. But the market for competition cars quickly split into two tiers. VFTS machines were considered elite, built for the USSR national rally team and for export, remaining an unattainable dream for thousands of ordinary racers. Vihur's cars, on the other hand, had a reputation for being budget and accessible, serving local sports clubs or factory-backed racing teams. Many tried to upgrade their Vihur cars to VFTS level, but few managed to fully replicate the Vilnius workshop's know-how. At one point, even Avtovaz's own factory rally team started buying cars directly from VFTS. Beyond the USSR, another company capable of building Ladas at a similar level was Metalex MTX from Czechoslovakia. Sometimes VFTS and MTX even exchanged components. Some parts were easier to source in the USSR, others in Czechoslovakia. Each year, VFTS built around 200 rally-prepared Lada 2105s. The Vilnius-built Ladas competed on rally stages across nearly every continent. In the Soviet Union, VFTS cars frequently took overall victories and podiums. Many wins were also achieved in Europe. By the 1980s, the only real rivals to VFTS cars in the USSR were the highly developed Moskvich 2140, fielded by Moskvich factory team, long known for their rally strength. After the debut of the front-wheel drive Lada 2108, Brundza believed it was impossible to build a true top-league rally car with such a layout. But times were changing, and by 1987, a genuine prototype was created, the Lada 2108 EVA. From the production Samara, only the door handles, wipers, and headlights remained. Everything else was purpose-built. A mid-mounted engine, a tubular space frame chassis, a fully original suspension, and a body composed of a central cockpit with two large clamshell sections, front and rear. The front cover even came in two versions, a night setup with extra headlights and a day version without them. The power unit was based on a heavily reworked Lada 2106, a 1.8-liter, 16-valve engine with fuel injection and a turbocharger. Positioned behind the crew's seats within the wheelbase, it produced around 300 horsepower and drove the rear wheels. The first running prototypes were only completed by late 1986, just as Group B was banned and the planned Group S regulations were canceled. As a result, the EVA never saw official competition. Instead, it took part in testing sessions and occasionally appeared as a zero car in rally events. By the late 1980s, the Soviet Union was already in turmoil. And if you've seen my other videos, you know this pattern well. Most stories about unique Soviet projects came to an end during the country's collapse. Sadly, the story of VFTS was no exception. The last rally-spec 2105s rolled out of the Vilnius factory in 1989. The collapse of the USSR led to the loss of Avto export support, shortages of materials and parts, and the disappearance of established markets. Thus, the VFTS name remained in Soviet history, while the once unique workshop quietly turned into a regular garage for servicing and tuning. And yet, the memory did not vanish. Across Europe, retro rally racing with cars from the 1960s to 80s is growing in popularity. Not just gentle old-timer parades, but real, competitive events. In the former Eastern Bloc and the Baltics, Soviet cars are naturally treasured. Hot rod builds of Ladas, Moskviches, Volgas, and even Zaporozhets are now produced on a semi-industrial scale, and many of them follow the spirit of VFTS. In 2013, during the 300 Lakes Rally in Lithuania, a special category called the Lada VFTS Cup was introduced, and fittingly, the prizes were awarded by Stasys Brundza himself, the man who started it all.
Мы должны создать технику, которая превосходила по своим параметрам лучшие мировые образцы. Ну, конечно, выполнить это сложнее будет, чем сформулировать, но я думаю, что в сотрудничестве с заводом ВАЗ в ближайшее время мы сделаем спортивный автомобиль, который сможет конкурировать на международных трассах. Вероятно, это будет на базе новой модели ВАЗ-2108.